Trucker Dump, episode 156. In today's main topic, we've got the first part of a two-part interview with a new trucker about his first 6 months in the industry. Lots of good info here for anyone looking to get into the industry. But first, we've got a couple of recalls, soon-to-be obsolete electronic log devices, possible new vision standards from the FMCSA, plus a COVID exemption reminder, and even more interesting, will trucking companies mandate the vaccine? We'll also talk about the FMCSA's new driver advisory panel's first meeting, and we'll hear some reactions to it. We'll discuss electric vehicles, slack adjuster no-nos, and more truck parking in Indiana. You want to get out your sweet tooth for the Trucker Grub segment, and in the listener feedback segment, we'll discuss everything from TV shows, burning trucks and trailers, and trucking gear. And be sure to stick around to see if you can help a really short woman figure out how to become a trucker. This episode of Trucker Dump is sponsored by the D13 Turbo Compound Engine from Volvo Trucks and Pilot Flying J's Driver Appreciation Month. Yes, month, not week. Hit it.
Welcome to Trucker Dump, where you'll get one driver's insights and sometimes humorous views of truck driving and the trucking industry, and pretty much anything else he feels like dumping on you. This podcast is brought to you by AboutTruckDriving.com, resources to help you understand the world of truck driving through the use of stories and a pathetic attempt at humor.
Well, as you can tell, I got my blueberry tea in hand and I am ready to roll on another episode of Trucker Dump. How's it going out there, Trucker Dumpers? For those of you new to the show, my name is Todd McCann. That's 2 D's, 2 C's, and 2 N's. I am the host of this podcast, obviously. I am a blogger. I've been a trucker for 22 years over the road and about 2.5 LTL recently. I am also the author of 2 ebooks. One is called How to Find a Great Truck Driving Job, and the other is called Trucking Life. Both are great books if you are new to the industry or just thinking about getting into the industry. And if you buy both those books at the same time, it's only $14.98. That's a 25% discount. You can check out both of those and everything else I do at abouttruckdriving.com. I hope everything has been well with you. I hope you made it through the, the brake safety check last week. Once again, I didn't notice any difference whatsoever, except for I did notice on my pre-trip inspections a little bit that my company had done some trailer work, replaced a few brakes here and there and stuff like that. I did notice that, but other than that, no difference whatsoever at the scales. Surprise, surprise. The joys of working LTL, working at the night. Half the scales are closed. It's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. But enough about LTL. Hey, I want to give you a heads up on something. I'm thinking you might want to start exercising, maybe getting some cardio in, get that heart rate up, get your heart in better condition, because I have an announcement to make. I'm going to be putting out 2 episodes in the month of September. Yeah, it's unprecedented, I know, but we got a special promotion going on with Pilot Flying J for the Driver Appreciation Month, and planned on kicking out 2 episodes for that. So just start exercising now. Oh, wait, I just told you. Hope you didn't keel over dead. All right. So with that, why don't we just go ahead and tell you what is going on with Pilot Flying J. Well, it's that time of the year again when Pilot Flying J goes beyond celebrating Driver Appreciation Week to celebrating driver appreciation all month. Yep, you heard that right. To learn more, go on over to pilotflyingj.com/driver-appreciation or just click the link in the show notes. Make it easy on yourself. So what exactly is better than free stuff? Yeah, pretty much nothing. So throughout the month of September, Pilot Flying J is giving out free drinks to truckers and offering specials on gear, food, and much more. And all you have to do is download the free Pilot Flying J My Rewards Plus app and show it to the cashier to reap the rewards. Cha-ching! Of course, while you're there, you can also grab everything from snacks for you to toys for your kiddos. And obviously, you'll want to head to the restroom to clear out some room for your free drink, right? Another thing Pilot Flying J is doing to celebrate truckers all September is the Thank a Trucker Challenge. Just make a short video thanking a trucker you think is pretty darn special and post it on social media using the hashtag #ThankATrucker. Every time you post one, Pilot Flying J is going to donate $5 up to a maximum of $25,000 to Trucking Moves America Forward. Need some inspiration? Go check out the link in the show notes to the trucker salute I did recently. So again, to reap all the rewards of being a truck driver and Truck Driver Appreciation Month, you can go download the Pilot Flying J My Rewards Plus app and learn about hashtag #ThankATrucker by going to pilotflyingj.com/driver-appreciation, or just click the link in the show notes. Thank you to Pilot Flying J for sponsoring this episode of Trucker Dump. Woohoo! Free stuff! Well, I know I've been giving the old shock and awe treatment when it comes to news lately, so you'll be happy to know not quite as much this time around. And this is especially good because, like I said in the intro, this is a two-part episode due to the interview being about 3 hours long. So, I split that into two, make it a little bit more palatable. And hey, gets, that accomplishment of 2 episodes in 1 month. Chalk it up for Todd. Woohoo! So with that, let's get on with the news. And with that, of course, we're going to start out with a couple of recalls, but these are just really a couple of baby recalls. I mean, look at these little baby recalls. They're so cute. They're so little tiny. Oh, cute. All right. Well, the first one here involves PACCAR. Yeah, PACCAR's got 688 medium-duty Kenworth and Peterbilt trucks. These trucks they have the Cummins L9 diesel engines in them, and apparently it is a fuel leak that can occur from the fuel hose between the fuel pump and the remote fuel filter head. Affected models are all 21 and 22 models, Peterbilt 536, 537, 548, and Kenworth 270. Oh, Kenworth T270, T280, T370, T380, T440, T470, and T480 trucks. So probably won't affect a lot of you since I think a lot of those are medium duty, like I said there. Anyway, they're going to replace those fuel hoses for free. The other little baby recall we got is with Wabash National. That's the trailer company. They've got some 2018 through 2022 refrigerated van trailers. Apparently the fuel tank brackets can detach. They used a 2-part adhesive on these, and apparently it is failing. So they are going to add an aluminum plate and 4 fasteners to each bracket to repair the issue. This is only on 352 truck or trailers. So that's not that big a deal. Probably won't affect you, that many of you. At least it's not like 70,000 vehicles like some of the last recalls we were dealing with. Anyway, if you think either of those are going to affect you, check out the link in the show notes here. You can get the recall numbers and the phone numbers to call and all that good stuff. Well, here's something that shouldn't surprise anyone. The U.S. government dragging their feet. Yeah, I did this long explanation, this long story about how the FMCSA had not mentioned anything about how the exemption for the hours of service, for the COVID stuff was expiring on August 31st. And I was like, wow, this is weird. They haven't said anything about it, not warned anybody whatsoever. Well, guess what? Just a couple days after I recorded that, on August 31st, the last day of the deadline, they release a statement saying they are now extending it through November 30th. So, way to go, government. Love that kind of procrastination. It's just fabulous. Really does great for my podcast. Love re-editing this stuff. I really appreciate it, FMCSA. Well, not much more to talk about here, but if you're interested in this, go to the show notes, check out the link to freightwaves.com. All right, to set up this next story that I found on freightwaves.com, let me tell you a little story of my own. In the last episode, I had about a 15-minute rant that you did not hear. That's because when I got done with it, I was like, do I really want to leave this in here? What it was about a 15-minute rant on Verizon. Now, I'm a big fan of Verizon, always have been ever since I switched from AT&T. I do think they are the best network for truckers. Verizon, sponsorship's open, okay? But what I was having some major problems with my Verizon network, and it was all of the people I talked to at night on the phone were having the same issue. All the Verizon people were, but the AT&T people were not. What was happening was there was like gurgling in the throat, sounded like you were constantly gurgling mouthwash while you were talking, or sometimes it just wouldn't let you merge phone calls, so you couldn't do a conference call or anything like that. And it was just really, really frustrating. I spent literally probably 6 or 7 hours on the phone with Verizon over the course of a month or so, trying to figure this all out, and they didn't know what was going on. And finally I got someone right at the end who said she suspected that it was going to be because they were putting the sunset on 3G networks. And she thought maybe there was some conflict going on there. Like if I was getting out in a 3G network, it was getting confused. My phone was, trying to connect to something that wasn't there. Yeah, you heard me right. Wasn't there. She said Verizon was about 6 months ahead of AT&T on getting rid of 3G towers. Now, I was like, what? Because 3G is widespread. Everybody knows it. 5G is barely around. 4G is the thing now. So, the reason I didn't post this rant, this epic 15-minute rant, is because by the time I posted it, my problems were gone. They just vanished. And I still don't have an answer to this. I don't know what happened because the lady I talked to suspected this was a problem that just was not going to go away. She really thought it had to do with the 3G networks going away. Well, and she didn't really elaborate why the 3G networks went away, but she kept saying, in order to put up 5G towers, we have to tear down 3G towers. And I'm like, what? That didn't make any sense to me. Well, enter freightwaves.com. Funny, I had to get this information from a trucking website, but there you go. The title of this article is, Will Your ELD Be Obsolete in 2022? Now, what freightwaves.com says is that the 5G network takes up so much bandwidth in the wireless spectrum that they actually have to take down the 3G technology. There's just not enough spectrum. That's how big this 5G network is. So that is why they're taking all the 3G towers down. And now it kind of all makes sense. But anywho, apparently there are a lot of ELDs. They do not list brands or models or anything like that, but there are, they say, hundreds of thousands of ELD devices that rely on 3G networks only. Now, that's the important thing. If your ELD will handle 4G, you're going to be fine for now. But if it only does 3G, you could lose this by early 2022, which is when Verizon and AT&T say this transition will be complete. So the advice in this article is to jump on this ASAP, talk to your ELD provider, find out if your device is 3G only or if it can also handle 4G or even 5G. That's going to be very important because you do not want to be setting on an ELD device that doesn't work and you're trying to figure out what's going on, because if you don't know, you can only go to paper logs for, I believe, 8 days is the max before you have to get back on e-logs. So again, they're saying the reason it's important to jump on this quickly is because there is a global microchip shortage. We've all seen it at the car lots and things like that. But it also affects all electronic devices, including e-logs, because, it's just basically a tiny little computer. So anyway, all that big, long story just to tell you to check your e-log device and make sure you're going to be current going forward. Again, I got this from freightwaves.com. Check out the link in the show notes. Oh, and I haven't mentioned where to get the show notes. If you're using a podcast app like I suggested in the last episode, you can just swipe up, down, left, right, maybe on a different screen. It's different in each app, but there will be a list of links of all these articles. Sometimes there'll be photos and stuff like that within the app itself. So when you're looking at it, the Trucker Grub podcast logo will change to a photo of something, like you can always see my ugly mug at the beginning of the episode. Hey, and in this a twist of fate, there actually is a mug, 2 mugs, in the photo at the beginning of this episode. You know, tea, it makes sense, right? Okay. Let's move on before I cheese up the place anymore. Sticking with the topic of health, let's go to freightwaves.com, where they have an article called FMCSA Medical Board Wants Tighter Standards for Drivers with Vision Loss. Okay, right now, the standard is you have to be able to see 70 degrees, that's horizontal, a 70-degree field of vision, and they are proposing 120 degrees. Now, this argument came from healthcare company Concentra, who most people know, when you have to go take a P test or, have a workman's comp, anything like that, you're going to Concentra a lot of time. They are the ones who suggested this in a recent public comment session. And apparently the FMCSA thinks it's a good idea. Now, there are some ways to get around this, of course, by taking for instance, if you are driving a truck intrastate, all within one state, and you do that for 3 years solid, I guess you're going to be exempt. If you take a road test of some kind, you would be able and prove that you're able to drive. That's fine. Like I said, there's some little stipulations in here. If you're interested in this, you can go check this out. I'll link in the show notes. But they say the standard person has about 140 degrees bilaterally. So, width, like I'm talking about. And so they're saying, 70 is half that. It's not sufficient enough. They want 120. Man, going from 140 to 120. I don't know. Anyway, I am putting this in here because there is a 30-day comment period on this. It's probably going to end right around September 23rd. I put a link in the show notes where you can go directly and make your comment. The thing that gets me about this is, why are they always futzing with stuff? I don't know how long this has been in place, with the 70-degree rule. It seems to be working. Do they have any evidence? Do they have any proof? Do they have any studies that show that people with only 70 degrees of field of vision have more accidents? Or are they just going on their gut feeling? Why are they changing it? Especially now when it's so hard to get truck drivers into this industry. We're just going to boot some good driver out because he has limited vision. I mean, I'm not saying let blind people drive, obviously, but if they've proven they've done it over years, why are they suddenly going to be cast out? I just don't get it. I put in a few strong words in this. Very well spoken. Didn't cuss at anybody or anything, but, I put my comments on here, and I hope you will do the same. Let's just ask them to quit messing with stuff, okay? I mean, if you mess with something like the split sleeper berth rule that they had for a while where, you had to do or in the 34, if you were going to get a 34-hour break, it had to have 2 sessions of 1 to 5 a.m. That was just dumb, so I'm glad they changed that. But this just seems silly. Anyway, check out the link in the show notes and to this article to learn more about it, and also to go and leave your comments. And thank you in advance for doing this. Hey, do you remember a few episodes ago where we talked about the new driver advisory panel that the FMCSA was kicking in? And I was saying, wow, this is awesome. Got a bunch of industry, not just industry experts, but industry drivers, people actually doing the job out here, not somebody desk jockey. There are probably some desk jockeys in there, but this was mainly drivers, which was good, right? Well, they met for the first time recently, and apparently, really what they focused on in this, I want to go ahead and say this article and the next one that I'm going to talk about are really long articles, but they're very informative about what's going on if you're interested in this kind of stuff, and driver pay and driver retention and all that stuff. So, of course, when they met, they were talking about, if FMCSA wanted them to focus on not recruiting, but retention of drivers. Now, OIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Driver Association, they've been touting on this for years, saying, hey, it's not it's not a recruiting issue, it's a retention issue. Drivers need to be retained where they're at. Companies need to treat them well enough that they want to stick around. Right now, apparently, the driver turnover rates for long-haul drivers are about 90%. And even at smaller companies, smaller carriers, it's about 72%. So it's not great either way you look at it. Of course, I think years ago when I first reported on this, it was like 130%. So I guess it has improved somewhat. But anyway, the thing they really focused on in this session that they had was they really wanted to remove the exemption from overtime from the Fair Labor Standards Act. This was done back in the 30s. I've talked about this a little bit, where they kind of lumped us in with farm workers and that you didn't have to pay them overtime. And they were really focused on this as a way to make drivers happier, by paying them overtime. And I'm just sitting here reading this the whole time thinking, wait a second. Most of the industry, if you're local, you might be on, hourly pay or something like that, where you're even eligible for overtime. But if you're over the road, you don't get overtime. You're not paid hourly, But, they did focus on some other things, sitting around at docks and things like that, how we're not paid for that kind of work. And there was something really good that came out of this, quote. Let me see if I can find it here. Okay, Pete Buttigieg, who is the Department of Transportation Secretary, and Marty Walsh, I believe is his name. Yeah, I think Marty is a guy. He is the Department of Labor, and they put on a quote that says, "Truck drivers, like doctors and nurses, are essential workers, and we need to start treating them that way." Well, thank God for that. Now, all we have to do is rely on the government to actually back up what they're saying. Let's not hold our breath on that one. But anyway, like I said, these are long articles, and, they talk about, all the issues with detention and how that's probably unfortunately, it's going to take a government intervention to get these shippers and receivers to quit stalling us and wasting our time. But they go on and say, but now let me go on and skip to the next article here. Both of these are on overdriveonline.com, link in the show notes. And this is basically asking drivers what they thought of how this session went. And, basically they're kind of upset that, hey, why are we focusing on overtime? Sure, we want to get rid of that fair labor thing. We want to get out of that and quit being lumped in, so drivers can make overtime if they're working for a trucking company and they're, hourly pay. Am I making any sense? It's early in the morning. Probably not. It don't matter. You've zoned out by now anyway. But, a lot of people who they talk to here in this article seem to say that, okay, fine, you could give back the overtime pay, but it's really not going to change our pay any. That the carriers are just going to modify it to where they just don't show overtime anymore, but you're still going to be making the same amount of money. And I could easily see that. They it might say on your paycheck now overtime, but then they've cut your pay somewhere else to make up for that. So you're really not going to be making that much more. And they did point out that, truckers in general do make a pretty decent living. We are higher than a lot of industries. I know that's hard to think about, but think about it. Like an accountant might make, $40,000 coming out of college, and, a trucker can make 50 pretty easily if they work hard when they come out here. So, and we are paid for our experience and all that stuff. So that helps. But, like I said, these are just two really complex issues. And I just found it, I just found it interesting that in this very first meeting of this driver advisory panel, that already there's more disagreement within the trucking industry. Everyday truckers are arguing with everyday truckers about how to fix trucking. Oh, boy, what a mess. We do have a retention problem for sure, and we do have a recruiting problem. I believe both are legit, and they need to figure out ways to get better at both of these things. I read another article recently that I don't have a link for, but it was basically that are these trucking companies setting themselves up for trouble? Because as we know, all these carriers are raising their pay, right? Almost every single one of them across the board is raising pay, and not just a little bit, a lot. I read an article recently where Cowan, COWAN, offering a $20,000 sign-on bonus. And I think they said about half that was going to be paid in the first 6 months. So that is a big chunk of money. But it's not just the bonuses, which is a one-time thing. It's, the mileage pay has gone way up. And what this article was pointing out was, oh crap, what happens when the economy, when it slows down? Are these carriers still going to be able to pay those wages? Are they going to go under? The article I was reading talked about how they think that this could ruin a lot of trucking companies because they're having to pay more now to get drivers when they need them. But when things slow down, what are they going to do then? Anyway, this whole thing is really complex. Like I said, great articles, both of them on overdriveonline.com. If you're interested in this kind of stuff, check these out in the show notes and have a read. And hey, get back in touch with me, truckerdump@gmail.com, and let me know what you thought of them. Why do I just feel like I talked for about 5 minutes and said absolutely nothing? Oh, well, par for the course on the Trucker Dump podcast, right? Onward. Okay. This one I got on overdriveonline.com. Biden calls for stricter emissions regs on trucks and cars within the decade. Yep, President Biden is asking the EPA, that's the Environmental Protection Agency, to come up with new standards on light, medium, and heavy-duty vehicles. He is also throwing cars in here, so hey, we're not alone in this, but same for anything 2027 and later, he wants new standards on it. They want to establish these rules by 2024, July of 2024, and, say that the first vehicles to come out in 2030 have to have these new guidelines. They're also saying they want to adjust the nitrogen standards. That's what you hear being called the NOx filters and stuff like that in your truck that, well, I don't know, in our trucks, it's always a sensor going off, something with a NOx filter. Anyway, this would be under the Clean Air Act, and they want to, same thing, 2027 on it, and, with models 2030 having the new standards, and they want this ruling by 2022, the end of 2022. So that one's even closer. Now, I say all that to just say, oh boy, here we go again. It seems like every time they add more emissions stuff to trucks, which sounds great in theory, it just destroys the the truckers, because you're always in the shop for different lights being out, because these engines just, well, ever since we've had the DEF and the EGR valves and all this emissions crap since, 2007, I think is when DEF came in and stuff like that. It just causes more problems than it's worth, in my opinion. Yes, we want clean air. I get that, but yowza. Of course, I'm sure along with this, they'll just say, hey, we wouldn't have any of these problems if you just go all electric. Well, we'll get to that here in just a second. So anyway, if you want to check out the link in the show notes, overdriveonline.com, check out this article yourself. All right, let's move back to freightwaves.com, where we're going to talk about a new thing being implemented now called the STEER Act. STEER stands for Supporting Trucking Efficiency and Emissions Reductions. Isn't that clever? This was already unveiled. It authorizes $100 million annually from 2022 to 2026 for a total of $500 million. It's setting up a voucher program for retrofitting heavy-duty trucks with emissions-reducing technology that's already available. We're talking stuff like underskirts, the wings that go around, that fill the gap between the tractor and the trailer, or the wings on the back of the trailer that you see, that kind of stuff. They're saying we are a ways off from electric vehicles, and they are correct on that. And again, we'll get into that in a little bit here. But, they're saying, let's do this now while we can. Now, I've read a lot of studies, well, not a lot of studies, but I've read some studies on this that say that a lot of this stuff doesn't really save that much. Yes, every little bit saves on fuel efficiency. I get that, but you have to look at the cost of the product itself, and the installation and all that stuff to see whether it's really going to make that much of a difference. Anyway, they are setting up this voucher system where it's, at least it's fair to smaller companies. They're saying, hey, if you want to implement this, if you have fewer than 10 trucks, we'll give you up to $4,000 or 75% of the total cost. We'll reimburse you for that. And all the way down to the bigger fleets that have more money. And if they have over 100 trucks, they'll be eligible for like $2,500 or 67.5% of the total cost. And there's varying levels in between. But I guess this is an okay plan. It's, certainly better than just saying everybody's got to go electric vehicles tomorrow, right? But we'll see. Wonder how many people are going to take them up on this. Owner operators, write in. Let me know. And if any interest in this whatsoever, yes, it's government money and it's free. Apparently, they're going to charge you for it. But do you want to mess with all of this stuff? Let me know. truckerdump@gmail.com. Link in the show notes here. All right, let's switch topics here to what else but electric vehicles. Yep, of course. We always talk about electric vehicles, do we not? Man, oh man, FreightWaves is kicking butt this time around. They are really supplying some good information. So what is this one? All right, this one is called Port of Oakland Tests Drayage with Class 8 Peterbilt Electric Trucks. Now, I'm embarrassed to say that I've heard the term drayage about 1 million times and never really knew what it meant. So I looked it up. Somebody's probably laughing at me right now. That's all right. Drayage actually just means short haul, really short haul. Like say, like a shipping port to another shipping port or a customer nearby, something that you can do fairly quick and get back. Well, again, like this article says, the Port of Oakland is testing 8 Peterbilt electric trucks. There's not a lot to say about this except for the cost involved in this. And I was really surprised. They put in 1 electric charging station for every truck. So 10 of them. 10 Class 8. Yeah. Okay. So 10 of these. The cost, $1.7 million. Yeah, $1.7 million. They had to build a little transformer station, put in the different, the little charging stations, and a power line extension, it says, but this just boggles my mind. Is this what it's going to be like? Because one thing I forgot to point out in the last article that we touched on is that 95% of the trucks still being produced are still diesel. Okay. So that means we got a lot of electric vehicles to replace. Now, think about if it was just 10 charging stations you're putting in, right? That 1.7 million, that's like an old-fashioned small-town Love's is what that is before Love's got big, right? 10 spots? Really? What about these places that have, 400, like the Petro in Joplin, or, like the TA up there in Walcott, Iowa, that has 900 spots. What are you going to do with that? Now, I realize it's going to be years before we have, all electric trucks, but still, say out of the 900, you've got 100 of them. Now you're putting in 100 stations. First, how do you put that in a parking lot? I don't know. And if 10 of them cost 1.7 million, what's it going to cost for 100? Yeah, this looks totally feasible to me. If you're interested in all of this junk here, check out the link in the show notes. All right, and to finish up the electric truck topic, let's stick with FreightWaves.com. This was a really good short article, and what we got going on here is it is an interview with a gentleman named Rich Moore. He is with a company called ChargePoint, and the whole function of his job is to figure out how to make fleets comfortable with moving to battery-powered trucks. And that's all he does. So he says it's definitely a challenge. This is despite all the hype about electric trucks, there's all kinds of infrastructure problems like we've just spoken about. And there's cost issues and things like that. And there's it's not long. It's kind of short, really. There's a question and answer session in here that is really informative. Let me just give you a couple of the highlights here. For instance, FreightWaves asks, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's the fleet interest in electric vehicles? And, he says that basically it's like really high, like a 7 or 8 for last mile, final mile type stuff, short runs, a local delivery, stuff like that. But for the over the road side, it's still pretty low. He says like a 2, which, yeah, that doesn't surprise me because, infrastructure for an over the road tractor, again, trying to find some place to charge is not that easy. Whereas, if you're a local driver, you're coming back with your truck every single day, that makes a lot more sense. They're really looking at like, the small type trucks are really good for this, like the small local UPS and FedEx delivery trucks and things like that. That makes complete sense. And where I had my doubts about Mr. Moore was when they asked him about the electrical grid. Now, obviously, he knows more about this stuff than I do, but his they say, what about the electric grid itself? Is it robust enough to handle the coming demand? And his answer, quote, I can tell you from our experience that utilities are prepared for this. They want to sell power and they want to do upgrades. I think there's this misconception that there's not enough power available. They have plenty of power built. It's a matter of planning for these major infrastructure projects. And are you planning with the utilities far enough in advance so they can meet the demand of that site? That's really what it comes down to. All right. All sounds good. Can someone please explain to me California? I mean, they are, yes, out in front with the electric vehicle situation, but they still have to shut down their power grid all the time and limit people just with a small number of electric vehicles on the road. Imagine if you're trying to pump all these, local delivery trucks and, granted they would probably be doing it overnight, so maybe, the infrastructure could handle that a little bit better, but it all just depends. I don't know. I have a hard time thinking that, California, like I said, they're a mess. So anyway, I guess we will see, right? All right. Show of hands. Who's had enough talk about electric trucks? Oh, I guess you can't see me, but my hand's up. Okay, let's move on. With the brake safety week being the last week of August, there was a lot of articles about brakes last month. And this was one of them that I found. It was actually pretty good. It's kind of long, as many of them are, but it is about slack adjusters. Now, there's always been a question, should you get under there and adjust a slack adjuster if it looks out of adjustment? Well, the consensus here is don't do it. That if you have a slack adjuster that is out of adjustment, it means there is something there's an underlying problem. So just don't go and mess with it. For instance, they cited this accident that took place in 2003. It took place in Pennsylvania and it claimed the life of the driver and an 11-year-old child riding in a car that the dump truck had struck during its descent on a steep downgrade. And they did judge that was caused by slack adjusters being adjusted by the driver. So you don't want to be messing with these things. Again, the whole premise of this article, it's really long. I don't know why they couldn't just said in one paragraph, but don't be messing with slack adjusters. They tell you a little bit how to grease them, things like that, how to take care of them, but don't be adjusting them, and don't even just let some TA or Loves or whatever mechanic go in there and mess with it either. It needs to be a certified technician who is certified to work on slack adjusters themselves. So just be very careful with this. You do not want to go flying down a mountain and cause death to you or anyone else. For all the details on this one, check out overdriveonline.com, link in the show notes. Well, what say we wrap up the news with a good bit of news. This involves Indiana adding truck parking. Yeah, apparently right now there's about 1,400 truck parking spaces at rest areas across the state, and that is going to increase to 2,500. Wow, that's nice. Well, kind of, within 10 years. Yeah, they just finished the Pigeon Creek Welcome Center on I-69 near Angola, and they are just getting ready to start on the one in Kankakee on I-65. Apparently these are going for about $20 million a pop, depending on the footprint and the size of the property, that kind of thing. This is a $275 million project, and it's going to end up, getting 16 of these rest areas overhauled. So that's good, right? We've been talking about this for a long time, how we need more truck parking, and how, right now the Republicans actually don't seem to be pushing that too hard, and the Democrats are pushing it. Last I heard, they hadn't really made a decision on this. I don't think they've come to an agreement yet, but I could be wrong about that. I didn't see anything in the news, so I'm assuming. Anyway, they're saying also, in addition to just more truck parking, they're going to be having better restrooms, other indoor facilities, they say, as well as like walking trails, picnic spaces, and stuff like that. So looking forward to that. I mean, anything to make Indiana better is good, right? Okay. Sorry, Gary, Indiana, you're lost. There's no coming back. All right. Well, that ought to do it for the news. What say we move on to the rest of the podcast? And guess what segment is back and totally legit?
Give us a bottle of your finest champagne, 5 shrimp cocktails, and some bread for my brother.
What's that?
Sushi.
Sushi?
Boy, some chicken wings have really hit the spot.
This is a tasty burger.
Don't play with your food, eat it.
Hey, again, thanks to everyone who entered the contest for the Trucker Grub segment last time, and congratulations to Justin Bird. I did get that $50 sent out to him. $50, you say? What did he get that for? Well, he named the 5 movies that are featured in the opening clip there. Now, I could tell you what those are, but if you want to know, you'll just have to go back and listen to the last episode 155. Well, in the last episode, we did not have an actual Trucker Grub segment. So, what is a Trucker Grub segment? Well, Trucker Grub, can I say Trucker Grub any more times? Yes, I can. Trucker Grub. Basically, what it is I ask you, truckers, to submit a good place that you like to eat that you can access in a truck, either close by, within walking distance, or someplace you can actually get a truck into. Well, nobody submitted one, so I have one. I just try to rack my brain thinking, where can I get, I've stopped at some places with this new job, but usually it's like close to the hotel where I'm staying. So it's not really truck accessible, so, but I remembered one. Oh yeah, boy, did I remember one. All right. This place is called the Westwood Cafe, and it is in the Oasis truck stop that is on I-44 in Missouri, exit 145. They are not open all night long, but it's worth it if you can get it through here. Now, if I was a physician, well, I'm going to tell you, you might want to check with your doctor before you go and do this, because honestly, just looking at the photo of this thing might clog your arteries. Just warning you in advance. So if you have a podcast app, go look in it right now. The chapter art does not show the Trucker Dump podcast anymore. It shows this giant cinnamon roll. I mean, this thing is the size of your freaking head. I mean, it's huge. And with cinnamon rolls, when I heard about this, I thought, cinnamon rolls are, I don't know, they can be good, they can be bad. Usually if they're too big, they're just too doughy and there's not enough like cinnamon and sugar down in there. It's like a lot of bread and then like all the cinnamon and sugar and stuff is on top. But this is not the case with this bad boy. I mean, like I say, take a look at the photo. If you don't have an app that supports it, I will have a link in the show notes to where you can go and actually see the photo also. But man, oh man, is this thing delicious. It is swimming in a pool of butter. I mean, just swimming. But like I say, it's the size of a full plate. And you look compared to the glass of milk and the knife sitting there in the photo. Anyway, the cinnamon roll, like I said, it is delicious. I ate it all in one sitting, and I regretted it while I didn't regret it. It's like I felt not so great after eating the whole thing, but man, the whole thing was delicious. Now, to be fair, I have not tried anything else at the restaurant because, let's be honest, if you eat a cinnamon roll of that size, you can't fit anything else in your body. I'm pretty sure this thing is meant to designed to be eaten by, shared by like 3 or 4 people. But nah, why do that when you can wax it off yourself, right? So anyway, there's nothing special about this place. No, the atmosphere is just your average little truck stop, kind of like a little, you expect to find a bunch of farmers in there, and there are. Nothing really special about it, like I said, but except for this cinnamon roll. If you would like to stop in here, check out the rest of the food, please consider leaving a Trucker Grub segment. You can do that by just talking into your phone, into your voice memo app, and just emailing it off to Trucker Grub. No, not Trucker Grub. I did that last episode, didn't I? Just send that off to truckerdump@gmail.com, and we'll get your voice and your favorite place to eat featured in this segment. So for now, like I said in the beginning of this episode, you need to start working on your heart, build up your cardio strength so you can tackle this giant cinnamon roll at the Westwood Cafe on I-44 in Missouri at exit 145 inside the Oasis truck stop. Man, oh man, do I have great news for you. In honor of Driver Appreciation Week, Volvo Trucks has given every Trucker Dump listener a brand new, decked out, top-of-the-line V&L 860. Okay, I'm as full of crap as a septic pump truck. But Volvo Trucks would like to thank you, the hardworking trucker, for continuing to be an essential part of keeping this economy rolling. Without you, we'd be in deep doo-doo. Wow, I've really got a theme going on here, don't I? Continuing with that theme, you know what else is crappy? Rising fuel prices. Did you know that fuel costs are one of the biggest expenses for owner-operators and fleets? Well, I think it's safe to say owner-operators already know that. And when fuel prices raise, though, whew, boy howdy, hang on to your hat. But that's where Volvo Trucks' new D13 turbo compound engine comes into play. Head on over to volvotrucks.us, or just be lazy and click the link in the show notes. It'll take you directly to a video showing you how the D13 turbo compound works. What? You're too lazy for even that? Okay, well, let me try to explain how it works then. The D13 turbo compound starts by using a new wave-shaped piston design to burn fuel more efficiently. Then the turbo compound unit lassos up any excess energy that's trying to escape. It'll even adjust the torque on the fly to save you money. Even better, the D13 TC comes in a variety of configurations for their V&L series. And it's also the stock engine in the V&L. In the end, the D13 turbo compound engine is 6% more fuel efficient than their D13 and up to 11% more efficient over their 2015 engines. But hey, there's still plenty more to learn about the D13 turbo compound engine. So pick up your lazy finger and tap the link to volvotrucks.us in the show notes to go and watch the video for yourself. Thanks to Volvo Trucks for sponsoring this episode of Trucker Dump and for saving us money at the fuel pumps. All right, thankfully we're back to having a main topic and not just all news all the time. Nobody wants that, right? Well, I don't know, maybe you do. But anyway, you've got an interview today, at least the first part of it. This is a long one. Well, that's why I decided to split it into 2 parts. So today I'm interviewing Zach Smacher, and he actually came up with this idea quite a while ago. Zach is known as Smacker Man in our Trucker Dump Slack group, been a member for quite a while, and he suggested, hey, why don't we do an interview about a trucker's first 6 months on the road? Brilliant, because as you may or may not know, 6 months is about when truckers will typically drop out if they're new. They've decided after 6 months whether they're going to stick around or not. So this is a great topic. I'm glad he came up with it. And we talked, like I said, for about 3 hours. I don't know what it's going to edit down to, but probably not much less than that. So again, this will be a 2-parter. And I guess with that, let's just get on with it. All right, I'd like to welcome to the show Zach Smacher, also known as Smackerman in the Trucker Dump Slack group. How's it going, Zach?
It's going great, Todd. That was a very impressive first performance.
Was it? Wow. Well,
Yes.
you know, I don't want to get a blooper right off the bat here, right? We'll save those for later.
Yes.
Okay, now I want to make an apology right up front here because if anybody hears screaming kids, I'm not torturing any children or anything. I am in a hotel and I have the worst room possible for recording. They put me right by the swimming pool. So now I'm in Des Moines today and they just started school. So hopefully all the kids are in school. Won't hear a bunch of screaming out here, but hopefully that housekeeper won't come by with their vacuum cleaner again either. So anyway, where are you at today, Zach?
I am about 50 miles outside of San Antonio, Texas.
Oh, wow. But it's hotter than holy hell down there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about 12 o'clock right now my time, and it is 86 degrees.
Well,
So it's not horrible.
Yeah.
Better than Arizona, which that's where I was yesterday. So
oh, yeah. Huh.
I shut down in Arizona. It was 111. When I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning, it was 84.
Oh, my God. At 2 o'clock in the morning. That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, that was amazing to me, too, because I was like, wow, I usually get to shut down my truck, and I'm not comfortable, and I'm comfortable, but not today.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Wow. All right. So as I kind of hinted to in the intro here, really what you're here for today is to help us and anybody listening and anybody who might be looking to get into the trucking industry. Just try to describe what the first little bit of a trucking career is like. So exactly how long have you been a trucker now?
I've been a trucker on my own since February of this year.
Okay. 6-7 months, right around there. Well, part of that was actually school too. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, everybody knows in this industry, or maybe people don't know because they're new to the industry, but there is typically a 6-month fall off in the industry. If somebody comes in, they typically know whether they're going to stick around with trucking within the first 6 months. And there is a lot of drivers who just fall off the face of the earth and you know, they go to a different career because it just isn't for them. And they figure that out after about 6 months. So you have been doing it for about 6 months. So far, so good?
Yeah, it's amazingly good. I
Okay.
am absolutely loving it.
Okay, cool. Well, just to kind of give people a frame of mind as to what where you're coming from and what you are, you know, what kind of job you do, what type of trailers are you pulling, that kind of thing. What kind of freight you hauling?
So I'm doing dry van. So whatever can fit into a regular dry van box trailer.
Okay. That seems like to me to be a pretty good start for a trucker. You know, it's pretty basic. You don't have to worry about learning all the extra stuff with tarping and tankers and especially and, you know, a bunch of specialized hazmat gases and all that crap. You're just putting stuff in a box, hauling it somewhere. It seems like a good way to start. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree. And that's pretty much why I decided to go that route.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let me just ask you an odd question right off the bat here. Now that you've been in this about 6 months or so, if you were forced to describe truck driving in one sentence, what would you say?
One sentence. Let me give that into one sentence. Okay. Navigating the roadways and highways and byways of the country with extreme patience and prejudice. I think that's a good way of putting it.
Sure. Yeah, that works. That's your answer. That works for me.
Yep.
All right. Well, okay.
And that was completely off the cuff.
Yes.
I did not see that one coming at all.
Yeah. I told Zach he was going to get some oddball questions here. Got to keep it interesting. Okay. So let's go back into your past a little bit. You weren't always a trucker. What set you on the path to become a trucker?
Well, set me on the path was I got tired of dealing with dead-end customer service jobs.
Okay.
I was an assistant manager for a couple of different mechanic shops.
Okay.
And also dealing with and admitting to myself that I was an alcoholic as well. So both of those things.
Boom. Twist right off the bat. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Curveball for you.
Okay. Yeah. Great. I never could hit a curveball when I was a kid. So great. Thanks a lot. Okay.
You're welcome.
Okay. So somebody's out there asking right now, as I am, hey, I might be an alcoholic. I think I want to learn to drive a truck. How's that work?
Well, you definitely need to be sober.
Yeah.
You definitely need to not be having any risk of issues. But honestly, it's really not hard. You know, you got to get yourself in the right place, figure out if this is something you want to do, and then just go out and get it done. I mean, I know personally right off the top of my head about a half dozen people that were in way worse places than I was. I was in a pretty bad place.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was almost a year clean or almost a year sober when I started school, and I did private school. I didn't do company school or anything like that. So
you wouldn't really say wanting to be a trucker was why you got sober, or was it?
No, it wasn't why I got sober. It definitely helped me maintain my sobriety, and it's continued to. But I mean, I got sober because I wanted to end things. So, and then there was an attempt. So. Oh,
I see. Okay.
Yep.
So it got pretty low. All right.
Yeah, it got pretty low.
Yeah.
So I mean, but honestly though, the reason why I say trucking helped was because being sober allowed me to realize that one of the reasons why I was like that was because I didn't have a good career choice.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I needed a career, and I turned to trucking.
A lot of times, like for me, trucking came about because I was working on a dock, loading eggs at an egg packing plant, and I was the guy loading the trucks, and I was always talking to truckers, and that's kind of what spurred me into it. And like I was seeing their paychecks and going, oh crap, that's a lot more than mine. Maybe I ought to do something about this and, pursue it. So how do you go from being an alcoholic who is working as a manager somewhere at an auto shop and just decide, yeah, trucking might be the thing for me? What drew you to trucking?
Well, I kind of had a similar experience. I wasn't working for trucking companies or anything like that or doing anything where I've seen a lot of trucks, but in my past, before I was doing the assistant manager thing, I actually had my Class B license.
Oh, and, okay.
When I decided to get my Class A, I did actually still have a valid Class B license. I just, unfortunately, none of the jobs ever worked out that allowed me to use that license. So that's why I was in the assistant manager role.
Okay. Just to clarify for anybody who's new listening, to somebody who's not a trucker, a Class B enables you to drive a straight truck, pretty much just a 2 or 3 axle truck that's not a combination vehicle. Is that correct?
Yep, that is correct.
Okay, cool.
So basically any vehicle that's under 26,000 pounds.
Right. So it just kind of seems like, okay, I got that. Hey, I kind of might enjoy that. Let's go try it. Is that kind of the way you looked at it?
Yeah, that's actually exactly the way I looked at it. I was interested in it because it was the next logical step. I already had half the license. I knew that I'm good with equipment. I've had experience with forklifts, driving cars, driving trucks. So it's kind of one of those like, well, I know I'm good with machinery. I know I'm good with, driving. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot. And also it was, I knew that, after listening to podcasts and stuff like that, like yours too, that this would be a good place to go to not only make good money, but also to fulfill a lot of things about myself that I really like, which is like my exploration and my adventurous side.
Right. Yeah. So is that kind of what you would advise for anybody that's maybe just kind of in the same boat as you? They're not happy with their career and they're thinking, God, what do I do? Maybe trucking, that seems like it might be fun. Did you just listen to podcasts? How much research did you really go into it before you just kind of jumped?
No, I didn't jump. I did a lot of research. I had my B. I had done a little bit of research into Class A years ago before I ever gave this second effort. But after I got sober and everything, I really did a lot of research. So I listened to a lot of podcasts. I watched a lot of YouTube videos. I think combination of both gave me different ranges of information. I also did a lot of individual research. So FMCSA website, DOT website, obviously the information I got through my schooling. And then also another is it cool if I plug a website real quick that
Sure.
I used?
Yeah.
It's called truckingtruth.com.
Okay. Yeah. I know Brett over there. I know who that is. He's got a great website, good information. I'll put a link in the show notes to that, by the way.
Cool. Yeah. Then that website was a massive help to me as well. Lots of information, lots of stories, lots of ways to really look at what the industry is like and what trucking is like and trying to figure out. And that's what I was doing with all this research is I knew I could physically do it and mentally do it. It was, can I emotionally do it? Is this something that I'm going to love or is it something that I'm going to hate? And that's why I did all this different research and why I did all the different platforms to try and figure out if this is something I'm really going to like. Obviously, getting out here and actually doing it is the final step, like you were saying. But, I would suggest to anyone, do that stuff first. If you get through all of that stuff first and it still sounds like a great idea, you're still really excited about it, then jump, get the license, and get out here.
Yeah. I've stressed a million times on this podcast before, check out what you're doing before you get into it, and there is so much information out there right now. Like you said, YouTube and Instagram and Twitter and like these Slack groups. If you're not yet even a trucker, you can get into the Trucker Dump Slack group and ask questions and hear us talk about this stuff. And, everybody knows I'm an Apple nerd and I love my Macintosh and I love my iPhones and stuff. But when I first got into it, I didn't know anything about it. I just knew they were really expensive. And so I started doing the exact same thing. Podcasts. I didn't understand anything they were talking about. I mean, nothing. And it's amazing how much you can just pick up through osmosis. You just keep listening and things start to just click, so if you're new and you've never come into the trucking industry and you're listening to a podcast and they're talking about landing gear and dollies and fifth wheels and all this stuff and you're just going, I don't get it. Eventually it's going to start making sense, you know? And and of course, just talk to as many truck drivers as you can, whatever you can do to try to figure out before you go to school, because as we're about to learn, school is not easy. It's not super hard, but it's something you don't want to go into lightly, I don't think. Yeah,
I would agree. I will say with your research, like you were saying, don't get overwhelmed by the information. Let's put it this way. The internet is basically the universe library. So in our entire universe, all of the information we have is on the internet. So keep that in mind when you're going to something like the internet to look for information. The second thing that I would, so don't get overwhelmed and don't try to, oh my God, I need to figure all this out. No. That's what school's for. Use the internet to figure out if this is something that you want to do.
Right. Yeah. And take the good with the bad also,
exactly.
Cause there's a lot of truckers on here just bashing the industry, but there's a lot of them that are trying to make it out to be some great adventure that it isn't either. So,
there's extremes with both. And that was the second point I was going to make was the internet is full of people, is full of trolls. There's unfortunately, there's a lot more trolls than there is a lot more, I guess you could say angels or whatever, good people.
Right. Sad. But true. Yeah.
No, but it's extremely true. And that's just how human society goes. But what I'm saying is where the point I want to make, the biggest one is if you're seeing a piece of information or you're picking up a piece of information from one place, but you never hear it anyplace else, or it's never, it's not really even remotely close or something like that, then it's probably that one person's opinion or that one person's experience. Mm-hmm. So don't take it as gospel. But if you're hearing the same thing over and over and over again from all these different sources, there you go. That's a very good indication that that's actually what's happening. It's actually true. And you need to consider that. You need to strongly consider that versus the other one that only had one source.
Right. Like you're not hearing a lot of, all these truckers talking about never getting home because there's no factual evidence behind that.
Exactly.
That happens a lot, so it's something to be aware of before you come into the industry.
Yeah. Just a quick story. I mean, right off the bat, when I first started my trucking industry, or my trucking research, I had people all over the place that were telling me, well, if you're going to go into trucking, the only thing that you're going to need, that you can be able to do is local. Because you're going to want to start a family, and that's never going to happen. And in my research, I found that just wasn't true. Because I found truckers over and over and over again who have very successful families, who have very well-to-do families, very good marriages. I mean, shoot, here's a statistic I just heard the other day from one of my podcasts. The divorce rate in America is between 40 and 50% across the board. Mm-hmm. In the trucking industry, the divorce rate is just under 20%. It's like 19.7% or something like that.
Yeah, man.
It's ridiculously low.
I asked this question on a podcast a long time ago. I was like, I'd be interested to know what the divorce rates are because they seem higher than normal. Mm-hmm. That's very interesting to me. We're going to have to get together on this afterwards because I want to know what that source is.
Okay, absolutely. I mean,
it's hard. I mean, you've been out here a short time, but the longer you're out here, you are going to hear horror story after horror story of bad divorces, multiple divorces, 5, 6 divorces, and just it's a hard lifestyle, as a family. You can make it work, but you need a strong spouse at home and one that's totally going to understand.
Yeah, absolutely, and I totally agree. And everybody has different varying strengths. My biggest thing, I would think, with a spouse and trying to figure out if they're going to be able to handle this is how independent are they?
Right. Yeah.
If they need to see you constantly, probably not going to work. But if they're just like, hey, what are you doing? Okay, cool. Have a good day. That's, that probably could work.
Yeah. Now, you're not married, are you?
No, I'm not.
Okay. You got a dog, but no marriage.
I got a dog. I got a dog and 2 cats.
Okay. All right. Okay. So before you got into trucking, what was your biggest fears about getting into the industry?
My biggest fear was, getting into a wreck. I've been driving for a long time. I've been driving since I was 17 years old. So getting into a wreck was definitely one of my biggest fears. But because of the whole alcohol thing, one of my biggest fears was, not being able to get in. And there's a whole other story behind that. But,
not being able to get in. What do you mean?
Like, because of my past and everything that happened.
Oh, I see.
With the alcoholism being denied.
Right. Yeah.
Thankfully, I wasn't, but it was a process.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. 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 I've faced something similar, and I've talked about this in my books, not a lot on the podcast, but I had a drinking incident driving. It was not considered a felony at the time. It was considered a misdemeanor, but it was still drinking and driving about 5 years before I got into the industry. And it limited my possibilities, but it did not keep me out of the industry, obviously. And it didn't keep you out either. So don't let that scare you away if you've got a past like Zach or me here. Yeah.
And I will say with this, the difficulty was with paperwork, specifically my medical card. You're going to hear a lot of differing stories. Do not sit there and think that your career is over because one person, whether they're at your company, another truck driver, someone from a doctor's office is telling you, this isn't really going to happen. I had multiple people over and over and over again tell me this is going to be a pain in the butt, but keep going. Be an advocate for yourself. Keep going, and you will get through this. You just need to be patient.
Yeah.
Which, I'll just kind of throw this in here. I think one of the biggest things that I've learned while being out here, since we're going on, what are the things, what's it like being out here after 6 months? There's a blooper. Is patience. You need to have patience.
Right.
And you're going to work on your patience. Trust me.
Yeah. And we're not just talking about just patience with four-wheelers out on the road. We're talking about, in your case, a patience before you even get started.
Yep.
Yeah.
Patience with your company. patience with paperwork, patience with doctor's offices, patience with DOT, patience with FMCSA.
Teachers and trainers and
teachers, trainers, all of that thing. You got to be patient with other truckers. You got to be patient with shippers and receivers. There's a lot of patience you have out here. A lot of patience.
There is. I've often said it. If you are a road rage person right now, please just don't get into the industry. I mean, you can train yourself out of that, but it's not easy.
I would say this because I think anybody who's driven anywhere, especially if you've done any sort of city driving, you're going to have a degree of road rage. The big question though is what degree of road rage is that? Because I saw a video on CDL Life that this four-wheeler pickup driver basically had a road rage incident and crashed himself into another car for absolutely no reason. So if you're that person, no, don't get in the truck. Don't even think about it.
Yeah.
But the reason why I say that is because I think everybody has a degree of road rage, and even if you do have a little bit more like of an anger problem, or you get emotional, or not. I don't want to say emotional, but you get riled up.
Mm-hmm.
The thing to remember, especially when you get on your own, is you're in the truck by yourself. Nobody can hear you. They'll see you a little bit, but nobody can hear you. So let it out. That's what I do. Yeah. I F-bomb and POS and flip the finger and all that all day.
Yeah. And the good news is you can outgrow this over time. And I remember when I had my eldest nephew out on the truck with me and we were in Chicago traffic and people were just cutting me off left and right, in downtown. And he was getting frustrated. And he was like, how are you just sitting over there so chill? And I said, dude, when you've been doing this as long as I have, you expect people to be stupid. So when they're stupid, you don't get pissed about it. It's par for the course, Yep. He was like,
yeah, exactly.
That's very chill. But, now when somebody does something stupid around me, I just kind of shake my head like, what a moron,
Yep.
So you can train yourself out of it. You're right.
You can. And you know what? In all fairness, I have trained myself. One of the things that I would hate is you're going down the highway, you're going to pass another truck or a four-wheeler, you're passing somebody. So you get over in the left lane or whatever open lane you can to pass the person, and there's obviously space, okay? Because you don't want to be right up on the person's butt. I really try not to do that.
Yeah. You kind of have to in a speed-limited truck, though,
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem that I've been learning. It's like, I got to keep up my momentum and my speed, and I need to take the lane now, otherwise I'm not going to have it.
Right.
But what would happen all the time is you would get four-wheelers and even a couple of times truckers who would get up on my right-hand side and pass or shoot the gap. Yeah. And, at first, for a while, for like the first 4 or 5 months, I was really angry about it. And it would really get me going and get me riled up. And it's still there. But I've definitely started noticing that I'm calming down. I'm like, oh, this person's going to do this. Yep, there he goes. Okay.
Yeah, it's like sixth sense that you just know it's going to happen.
Yep. And I'm actually, it happened to me today. I was genuinely surprised. I got out, I saw someone was back there, and I'm like, yep, he's going to shoot the gap, he's going to pass me. And they didn't. They stayed back. They even stayed back far enough from behind my trailer. I'm like, wow, this person actually cares about their life.
It's a freaking miracle.
I know. It's like I wanted to give them an award.
Yeah. Okay, so you had some fears coming in, as anybody would when you're coming into a new industry like this. Is there anything that particularly excited you about it, or were you just kind of excited to be getting a new career started, or was there anything particular about trucking you were like, this is going to be cool?
Well, there was. For me, I was listening to a podcast. I don't know if it was yours or another one, and a guy was talking about how one of the things he loves out here in trucking is the adventure and the exploration. And on that
definitely was not me. I can tell you that. I don't explore, so it wasn't me.
Well, it was it could have been a guest. I don't. Yeah. I don't remember exactly.
Right. Yeah.
No, I heard it on a podcast. On that hike, I had gone to a completely new area. Never been there before. 45 minutes away from home. It's nothing to a trucker, but still. And I had really enjoyed the hike because I was out there and it was new and it was different, and I was exploring and having a little mini tiny adventure.
Yeah.
And when he said that, and I did the hike, and I put the two together, and it's like, that's what I really, really got excited about with trucking. And I'm still really excited about with trucking.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been out on the road. I just did this run from Texas, went all the way out to California, and then came back. Now I'm back in Texas, delivering tomorrow.
Yeah.
And
it's hard to believe when you first get into the industry how much distance you cover. You know, you're just like, most people, it's like, never even go to California. And then you're like, Texas, California. Then next thing you know, you're over in New York State. And it's just, you know, it's a matter of 3 or 4 days and you're across the country, you know?
Yeah,
it's
across the entire country.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's weird. It's something weird to get used to for sure.
Yeah, it is a little weird. The mileage and the distance is a little weird. I mean,
Yeah.
just the other day, just yesterday, I crossed 3 states.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how many times can you say that? Well, I mean, I live on the East Coast, so that's not terribly hard. But
Right. Yeah.
to cross 3 states on the West Coast, that's a different story.
Yeah, it's a bit of a chore, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, it is. 690-mile chore.
Right. Okay. So, all right. So now you're excited about trucking. You got a little bit of fear going on. And so you decide, I'm going to jump on this. So, you know, by listening to all your podcasts and stuff, your first step is to go to a truck driving school. So how did you choose that truck driving school? What was important to you about the one you chose?
So the truck driving school that I chose, I'm not going to name them, but they were a local school near where I lived. And basically, they were really the only school in the area.
Let me interrupt one just real quick, just so we can verify. Was this through a company, through a trucking company, or was this independent?
Yeah, I should have specified. So private company. So not through a trucking company. It's a private school. Doesn't have any affiliations or connections with a trucking company. So basically, you go in, you pay for the school out of your pocket, whether that's grants, scholarships, a loan, out of your own credit card, doesn't make a difference. You pay the money to go to the school, you get your CDL is yours.
Okay.
No contracts, no attachments, nothing.
Okay. And that's why you chose that for options?
Yeah. So that's the main reason why I chose that school. Plus, to be honest, like I said before, there really wasn't any other option. There were a couple other smaller schools, but that was really the only main school in the area. And then also, this was right at the height of COVID. I signed up in April of 2020.
Okay.
So, right at the very beginning of COVID. So there was nothing happening, and I was lucky to get into the school that I got into.
Now, a lot of people, when they come into the industry, they're broke. And so they're thinking, I just need to get into a school and I can't pay for it. So that's why a lot of times they'll go the route of taking a truck driving school from one of the big carriers, you know, Schneider or JB Hunt. I don't think even JB Hunt has a school anymore, but
no, they don't.
You know, the big carriers out there, a lot of them have their own schools. And the way that works, if, you know, for people who are new to the industry, is that often you will go to that school, they will pay for it, and you basically have to work for them for a year to pay it off. And either they will take that out of your check a little bit at a time through the course of the year, or they'll just say, just work for us for a year and your debt's paid. So it's important to ask these questions when you get into it, you know, so you know what you're getting into. But like you said, if you go with an independent, you may have to pay for it yourself, whether that's a loan. How did you do that?
So I did it actually a few different ways. Actually, it was only a couple ways. I got a couple of different loans through the school, for the school. Was able to get most of the schooling paid for that, and then I had to actually get some monies from my father to pay off the last remaining in order to test out and get out. And now I'm just making payments on the loans. So I got loans.
Okay.
The main reason why I couldn't get everything covered was because I've already gone through 4 years of college. So I've exhausted my, scholarship and
student loans and all that
student loan stuff. Yeah. Like free kind of education type stuff.
Right. So if you hadn't done that, would these type of loans qualify for student loans?
Yeah, absolutely. And that, or you wouldn't have had to pay anything because you probably could have gotten it through a grant.
A grant.
Grants
yeah.
you don't pay, loans you do pay.
Right. We went on a partial grant, the Evil Overlord and I, and it was great. You know, we hardly paid anything for our school. I think we only ended up paying like $600 a piece for our school.
Nice.
And it was like 6 weeks long and 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. You know, it was a really thorough school through a community college. Yeah. Well, as I've said before on here, my preferred method is what you did. You know, do the independent job. That way you have all these options to choose from and you're not stuck with the one company. But if that is your only option,
it is doable.
That's your only option, you know, to go with a trucking company and go through their school.
Yep. Yeah. Can I just, I'm just going to say something with the company sponsor. Just a quick, a few things. Some things to always keep in mind if you're going to go the company training route. Number one, you're going to have a contract with that company. So there's going to be stipulations in that contract, and for whatever reason, if you violate, you're gone. So is your CDL. The second thing is that you could, if for whatever reason, you know, you could be held financially responsible for their school. And these companies can put an arbitrary amount. So whereas a normal trucking school in your area might be, let's just say $5,000, that trucking company could say, well, our school's $25,000. You owe us $25,000 right now.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is with just going through the schooling in of itself, they may say, oh yeah, we're interested in getting you your CDL, but in reality, what they're interested in doing is getting you in a truck. If for whatever reason you can't perform, and again, every place is going to be different, so I can't say, but I've definitely heard of stories where for whatever reason, a person was getting hung up on something. Let's say it's trying to do the alley dock, the 90-degree backing maneuver, and they needed more time. But for whatever reason, the school would not, or the teachers or whoever would not give them the time to practice. Would not give them more time. They can boot you for that.
Yeah.
Boop, you're gone.
Yeah.
Whereas with a private school, you've paid for the school.
Right.
So they're going to take however long it takes them to get you your CDL.
Yeah. And you've got money in the game, so you've got skin in the game on that too. So
exactly.
Yeah. You're going to make sure you get your money's worth.
Yep.
All right. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about your trucking school there? How many weeks was it? How many hours? If you know that kind of stuff, what kind of equipment you drove, that kind of thing.
So, my schooling was, I was doing the part-time route. First of all, because I was working full time, so I couldn't go there every day of the week.
Takes a bit longer.
It was a weekend. It was basically Saturday and Sundays, and then I think it was like it was like 1 day a week as well. So it's 3 days. Mm-hmm. So that bumped it up. Normally the school takes about 5 months. It took me 6 months because of finances and just also making sure that my backing was good.
Yeah, and you're working for a living, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I was trying to do full time plus trying to do this. It's not that hard. It's not that easy.
Right.
Hard. So and then so it was 640 hours in the classroom. Okay. So that was roughly 3 months, and then the last 2 months was out in the yard doing the backing maneuvers, pre-trip, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they were great. They taught me everything that I do. All the people there were former or current drivers. You know, I think they did an excellent job, and they taught me a lot of different things that I think other places wouldn't have taught me.
Right.
Again, though, they are a school, so there is the school does. You know, they can't teach. First of all, they can't teach you everything, but then second of all, they're concentrated on getting you your license. So that's what they're going to teach you.
Right.
And then also with the school, one of the things I think people get hung up on is like endorsements. The school, for instance, was saying, well, these are the endorsements that you need for your CDL to get on the road. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's all they're really going to push for you. That's all they're really going to go.
Yeah.
My suggestion would be get every endorsement that you can, plus get your TWIC card. Just get it out of the way. It'll cost you about $300.
And hazmat, I would think also.
Yeah, that's all the endorsements. So hazmat, tanker, double, triples.
Right. Yeah.
You can't get passenger or school bus or anything like that at a normal CDL school, but
Yeah.
and then your TWIC card.
Yeah, I mentioned the hazmat specifically because it's a little bit different than like your tanker. You just kind of got to take a written test, and you're already in study mode, so you might as well just take that and get it over with. You know, your doubles and triples,
Yep.
things like that. But then your hazmat's a bit different because you got to go for fingerprinting. You got to get a background check done. It's a bit of a longer process, but it can really open up opportunities when you come out of driving school to find that. That great job, and they're like, hey, we need you to have a hazmat. You're like, well, crap, I'll go get it. But now you're a month and a half out, and they're like, screw it. Come back later. They will hire you later because this is the trucking industry and everybody needs drivers. Yeah. They'll hire you eventually, but it's going to cause a delay for you.
Yep.
So I don't know much about the TWIC card, though. What's the process like on that nowadays? Oh, and first explain what the TWIC card is.
So the TWIC card is basically a security pass to get you into things like ports and airports.
Okay.
I have not used mine yet, so I know some people say, oh, that's a waste of money. Well, I'll explain. Yeah. So to get the TWIC card, you basically have to do the same thing as the hazmat.
Okay.
Now, here's the nice thing, is you only need to get fingerprinted once. Once you're in the system, you're in the system for the federal government. So you're good to go when it comes to fingerprinting. And then after that, it's just filling out a questionnaire. They do whatever background check that they do, and then they either accept you or deny you, and then they send you a card, and you pay your fees. So for hazmat, I think it was $100 for the finger. It was $100 for the fingerprinting. It was another $50, I think, for the background check that I had to pay. It was $5 for the hazmat test, which, like you were saying, Todd, just take it. You're there. Yeah. You're already in study mode. Just get it done and out of the way. You can do the test and not have the fingerprinting and the background check done. And then once all that comes in, then when you actually get your license, so when you do your permit, you'll get your authorization and it'll boop right there on your license. Don't have to worry about it. Yeah. Same thing with a TWIC card.
Right.
The TWIC card itself was another $150.
Okay.
And that's it. No extra fingerprinting or anything like that. Just have to fill out the paperwork, pay your fees, send in. You've already got fingerprinting done for the hazmat, so they'll already see that, and they do your background check as well. And then they, like I said, either accept you or deny you and send you a card, and that's it.
Right, and this is really, like we said, just to open up your opportunities for different truck driving jobs. And maybe you get 5 years into your career and your TWIC card, I don't know how long the TWIC cards.
They go for 5 years.
5 years like a hazmat, okay.
Yep.
So,
no, hazmat's actually only good for 3. At least mine is.
Oh, I thought it was 5.
No, for mine it's 3. It expires with my license. The TWIC is good till 5. Yeah, mine doesn't experience. Mine actually, 5 years because I got it in 2020.
Okay, if you're listening to this right now, write truckerdump@gmail.com and tell me what your state does. How is it?
I think it is. I think it is different with every state, though.
I'll be darned. So I would think that'd be a federal thing, but then again, this is why we're asking people who actually know.
Yeah, exactly. Who actually knows? We're just going off experience.
I should know because I have to have a hazmat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but anyway. I don't think I. You might be right. It could be 5 years federally, but then it goes off of what the states want.
Yeah. But as I was saying, though, if you really, later on you find out that you're never anywhere near a port and you just don't have any use for the TWIC card, just don't renew it. It's not that big of a deal.
No, it's not. And then, if you decide or you get into a company and they, they'll tell you on the application most of the time what you need to have before you can apply. And if a job that you want says they need a TWIC card, fill it out. It usually takes a couple of months. But you have the card, then you can fill your application out.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Now, in your trucking school, what kind of equipment did you learn on?
So we had, I don't even know what the years were, but they were pretty old, Internationals and Volvos, and they were all 10-speed.
Okay. A straight 10-speed.
Yep, straight 10-speed. So 5 and 5. Mm-hmm. With just the regular splitter. That's it.
Okay. And what kind of trailers were you pulling on that?
So this was something I, didn't really have a whole lot of choice on, but those trailers were 48-foot trailers. Okay. So they weren't full 53s.
I think that's pretty okay, because a 48 footer, for those of you who don't know, a 48 foot, the wheelbase from, your kingpin to your rear tandems is about the same as a 53. So all you really have to worry about is
forward. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. If you put the 48s all the way to the back, like most people use a 48, they're basically in the same place as a 53 when they're slid more forward, which most people, they don't, well, you can't have the tandem slid all the way back on a 53 in most states, or else you're going to be illegal. So, it's kind of the same experience. So 48, 53 doesn't really matter that much. It's the ones you have to worry about is when they're having you haul a 28 foot pup or a 40 foot, even a 40 foot, like a lift gate or something like that. You just don't want to get into that, because you're just going to have too much trouble transitioning when in your first road test at your first company,
Yep, that's absolutely right. And, I will admit it was a little bit different, because again, those, none of those trucks were sleepers. They were all day cabs as well. So that was, I'll explain real quick. So sleeper versus day cab is a sleeper truck is that longer looking boxy truck that the person has room in the back to actually sleep. Whereas a day cab, you've basically got the doors and it's just a wall. So there's nothing really back behind there for everyone that's listening.
It makes it shorter and way easier to maneuver. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. You have a lot more room to maneuver. So.
Yeah. So what was the hardest thing for you to learn at trucking school?
It was definitely the backing. The turns really weren't that bad for me because I had the B truck. I had the experience. So I already knew that I had to take my turns wider. I mean, there's always a little bit. And I drive a standard transmission as well in my personal life. So that wasn't a big jump, but I will say this. There is a little bit of a learning curve because a diesel transmission is not a car transmission. They are two very different things. And in real life, guys that are running standard transmissions, they will float gears. You do not float gears in school. Everything is double clutch.
By float gears, we mean you don't use a clutch unless you're coming to a start, start or stop. Yeah. Yep. Other than that, you just learn how to shift when the RPMs are in a certain range. You can just shift without a clutch, and it's no problem. But you do not learn that in school. You learn a double clutch method, which you're pumping, you're pumping the clutch about halfway down to pull it out of gear, and then lifting, and then putting it back down about halfway and putting it back in gear. And they'll teach you that in school, and it's a little hard to get used to. It's not like driving a car. That's usually the number one problem people have. Is the shifting, and then probably a close second is backing. But like you said, you had a little bit of experience with that.
Yep, yeah, and you will get any good school worth its salt is going to give you plenty of time on the road to learn. So especially with shifting. Yeah. And another thing to remember when you're picking your schools is if they do not have standards, you will have an automatic restriction on your license.
Right. Very important. Yep.
Yeah. So if you don't want that, if you want no restrictions, so you want total, open ability with your license, which I would recommend, especially if you're going to make a career out of this and you're going to be spending the money to go to school, get a school with standard transmission trucks.
Me too. Yep. I would totally agree with that. I get it. You may think, hey, I'm just going to go the easy route and get the automatic because I'm only going to work for a company that's got automatics. Well, I don't think you can say that. Yeah. Yep. And you do not want to try to go back to school and try to get, work on it and get your license again. Cause like Zach said, it is specific in most states. If you train in an automatic, you only get an automatic license. Only you can't drive a standard legally. So you just don't go that route. Yep. And that's another reason why it's important to ask a lot of questions before you go to truck driving school of the truck driving school and say, hey, what kind of equipment you hauling? Because you don't want them to say, "Oh, we got automatics with a 28-foot trailer," because you're like, you are gonna have a bad time at your first your first road test.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. And with that too, with this whole schooling thing and the transmissions, if for whatever reason you have that automatic restriction, not 100%, but I believe you have to go back to a training school for a certain amount of time on the yard, actually training on a truck. So basically, you're going back to school.
I think that sounds right. We had a guy who hired on at my company that was the exact same thing. He had kind of learned to drive in an automatic, and they just said, if you need a stick, come on back and we'll help you out. And that's exactly what he did. He got like another 3 days of shifting and then had to come back and do his road test. It didn't go well, but thankfully my company had low standards at the point. So they were like, yeah, sure, we'll take anybody at this point. Yeah. That's kind of the way the whole industry is, but you don't want to do that.
Yeah, and that's the other thing to remember, guys and girls, with schools is there's no standards.
Yeah.
There's no federal standards. There's no state standards. Yeah. So honestly, if you're just looking to get into it, there's plenty of CDL farms out there for you. But if you're actually looking to make this a career, or you want to be successful and you want to be trained well, you need to ask these questions. Really, honestly, take a look at Todd's books. They explain it really well. He breaks it down really well. And also, though, you need to ask questions, and you need to make sure that school is the right one for you. Because if it isn't, you're going to make your life a million times more difficult later on down the road.
Yeah.
And a lot of these companies, even with everyone screaming and yelling, driver shortage, they're not going to deal with a new driver who just got out of school who can't handle a truck. They're not going to deal with it. They're going to put you down the road.
Yeah, we had a guy in our orientation at our first job, and we were very nervous about our first road test because we didn't feel prepared and all that stuff. And at the end of it, they had sent one of the guys home because he could upshift, but he could not downshift. So every time they asked him to downshift, he ended up pulling over to the curb and starting from scratch, and that just ain't gonna cut it. So I haven't just explaining my story and how that worked for us. How well prepared did you feel when you came out of school for your first road test?
I felt prepared enough to drive my school's trucks. I didn't feel prepared enough to drive a sleeper or to drive this or that. Yeah. And again, it's one of those things where you're going to test in day cabs. I really don't see any schools that have you training in sleepers.
Oh, we did.
You're going to be testing.
We did.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it was just my school, but
yeah.
But there's always going to be a lot of nervousness, even after you've gotten that CDL. You went through the most nerve-wracking part of your life, which is doing the road test. Doing the backing maneuvers, the pre-trip test, and all the DMV stuff. But again, it's one of those things where you are going to be nervous. The thing is you already have the skills, so get out of your head and just do it and just drive.
Yeah. It's really hard to do that. I mean,
it is.
You're going to go in, you're going to grind gears, and your initial thought is they are going to let me go because they're going to say I suck. I'm grinding gears. Trust me on this. Anybody coming into the industry, they know if they're hiring somebody fresh out of school that you are going to grind gears. They know it. They just want you to be in control of it and be able to actually do it, unlike that guy who got sent home from our orientation because he just couldn't do it. But if you can show you can do it and you keep your calm head during it and you're not running over curbs and you have good lane control and stuff like that, they're going to hire you because they know you're going to spend more time with a trainer.
Yep. And that's the other, and I think that's a thing because if anybody, I don't know if Todd said anything yet, but I am a company driver. I'm not going to tell my company, and it's one of the megas. Again, won't tell you. But even with that, I personally know a couple of people who went out, did their road test, and they didn't get past the road test, and they got sent home.
Yeah.
So again, even just because you went to orientation, even if you're, you got that condition, you got that letter of employment, you're not officially hired until after that road test.
Yeah.
So once you get that road test signed off, that's when you are officially hired and you officially become a part of the employee. Even though you may be getting paid for training, you're not officially an employee until after that road test.
Yeah. And the P test. Also, you got to get past that drug test.
Yeah. I passed the drug test too. Yeah. I mean, that's all orientation stuff as well.
Yeah.
But, and even then though, again, if you get out there with your trainer, and I know a couple of people for my company that were there and that I knew went off with trainers and they didn't make it because either A, they got into a fight with their trainer, which I'm not going to even get into that, or B, they did, like Todd had mentioned, they didn't have lane control.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like the guy was like, the trainer was like, he can't keep a lane.
Right. And that's very important. Yeah.
Yeah. Very important. Especially when you're out here and you're dealing with these crap roads and these insane four-wheelers and bad weather.
Missing a gear every now and then is not a big deal as long as you're not going down a mountain pass. But, you're going to learn to shift better. But that lane control, you better have that from the beginning or you're going to cause yourself some problems.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Okay, so we're talking about training a little bit, so let's move on to that phase. So you've got your CDL. If you're listening to this and you don't know the process, basically like Zachary said earlier, they're basically just trying to get you your license, get you passed, get you your CDL in hand. From then on, the company, whoever you decide to go to work for, they're going to have specific guys who are, or girls, set aside to do the training for you. And that period could be from 2 to 3 weeks to 6 weeks, however long they feel you need. They will have some kind of a set program. So what was yours like? How'd you get along with your trainer? What was it like living with a person in that box for so long? Tell us about your experience there.
Sure. So my training experience was awesome.
Good.
My trainer, me and him got along great. He was definitely an older school type guy. He'd been with that. He'd been on and off in trucking and with the company that I'm with for 27 years.
Wow.
So he'd been doing this for a long time.
Uh-huh.
He'd been doing training, I think he said for like 7 years or something like that. Uh-huh. So he'd been doing training for a while as well. And he definitely had some stories about that. But, he was an older gentleman, but like I said, we both got along really well, and it's funny because you got into the truck, and one of the things that you kind of get through, and I think you mentioned this in one of your books, is to, ask the trainer what his or her rules are for the truck.
Mm-hmm.
And his rules were pretty simple. He was like, rule number 1, don't crash the truck. Don't hit nothing.
That's a pretty easy rule.
Yeah, and then rule number 2 is don't pee in the truck. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're both guys, so,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
so other than that, he's like, I really don't care. So the training went pretty well. For my company, the training was a month long, so 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
You're constantly getting evaluated. Again, when you get into training, and I think I need to say this because I was not expecting this, is some companies will run the truck as a team. Some companies will run the truck as a solo. The way my company run the truck officially is it is a solo. So
they're doing it right.
One person's driving, the other person's watching you, which should be the trainer is watching me, and I'm driving.
Yeah.
It kind of at first that's how it was, and my trainer would drive, but my trainer would also drive a bit because we were on a dedicated route. So we were running the same route, or doing the same thing from point A to point B. So we were picking up from one place in New Jersey, and we were taking that all the way over to the Columbus, Ohio area, and then taking it all the way back. Okay. So we were doing that same run between those two warehouses for 5 days a week.
Oh, wow.
So we'd have 2 days off. So we would do Tuesday to Saturday, officially. Usually we would be picking up Monday afternoon, and then we would be going all the way over, or actually we'd be picking up like Tuesday morning, and then we would be ending Sunday morning, dropping off at the final place, and then going over to a hotel. So then he would drop me off at a hotel that was nearby his home, and then he would go to home for a couple of days, and then when his home time was done, he'd come pick me up.
That's pretty typical, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was. and I know some people are going to be like, well, why do some companies run as a team? Because they want money. They instead of seeing you, and I want to make this distinction, instead of seeing you as a trainee and a potential driver, they're seeing you as a money maker.
I agree with that.
That's a problem. That's a huge red flag. Do not do that.
Well, just think about the logistics of this, okay? You're sitting there, you're a brand new driver, and you start taking off down the road, and the trainer says, yeah, you got this. I'll be in the bunk. Now you're driving for 6, 8, 10 hours, 11 hours, whatever. You don't even know when you're supposed to stop, where you're supposed to stop. You don't know what you're doing. I don't know why anybody would go to bed under those circumstances, but trainers do it sometimes, and you are not learning anything. And that is the whole purpose of training, is for that person to sit there and guide you through situations. And if they're in the back, they're doing it wrong. Your company's doing it wrong. So my advice is always ask what their training program is like. And if they can tell you our trainer has to be in the on-duty position, sitting in the passenger seat while you are driving. And then if he wants to drive a little bit extra on his own, that's fine, but you got to have that person sitting there. You do not want to be a team member for somebody, because all you're doing, like you said, is just racking up miles for them and the company, and they're using you. Just ask that question before you hire on with the company. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And, and I know I said that my trainer was on a dedicated run. Mind you, this is, by the time I got on the road with him, it was the beginning of January. So we're right smack dab in the middle of winter on the East Coast, coming out of the PA area, running New Jersey all the way over to the Columbus, Ohio, Chicago area.
Yuck.
So that's some pretty tough roads, especially in bad weather. And we definitely had some bad weather going up and down those mountains.
Good training.
Especially through PA. Yeah, during training.
It's nice to have an experienced driver sitting with you when that's going on.
Exactly. And that was the thing that I wanted to make clear with this is, my trainer did eventually go in the back and go to sleep sometimes when I was driving. But here's the thing. There were many times where I would say something, he'd be like, what's going on? Or he'd pop up and he'd be like, oh, yeah, you need to do this. So he was aware.
Yeah.
Number one. And number two, with that, for the first, I'd say about a week and a half, he was basically constantly up in the seat with me. Now, of course, he might, doze off or something like that, or, take a nap or something like that. But again, you're going to learn. You're on I-80 in Ohio. It's pretty much straight and flat. There's really not a whole lot out on that way. So you're fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, it's one of those things where, you'll kind of learn this with a trainer, but again, asking that right question is critical to figuring out if this is going to be something good. And I know, I don't think I actually said it, but I'm over the road. So I go anywhere in the continental United States, possibly even Canada, if my company wanted to send me up that way. But even, and I know some people are like, oh, but you only did a dedicated account. It was only a dedicated account, but it was still a 800 and something mile run. So it still takes a full day and a half's worth of driving.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you're still going through the mountains of Western PA.
Yeah.
And then dealing with the city traffic of Chicago area, which if anybody knows, it's technically Columbus, but it's still Chicago area. You're right there.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with Chicago area traffic.
Well, ideally, in the perfect situation, they would have you in a line haul, or not a line haul, but like an over the road position where you're going to multiple shippers and receivers and covering lots of different parts of the interstate system, in different parts of the country, kind of getting you just used to dealing with different kinds of customers and not dealing with the same customer every day. But trainers are in short supply, so you take what you can get,
exactly,
kind of a thing.
Yeah, and actually, I'll tell you a quick story. Getting my trainer, finally got approval from my company to get onto a trainer. The day I get approval to get on with a trainer and get the information for my trainer was Friday. It was exactly 7 days away from Christmas. I don't know. I remember it was a Wednesday. but
Yeah.
it was exactly 7 days away from Christmas. Or no, Christmas last year was on a Friday. So I got approval Wednesday. I didn't actually get in contact with him until Friday. Then turn around, you wait a whole nother week to get past Christmas. Because he tells me, well, I'm going to pick you up Saturday.
Right.
Okay? Now, the day that he tells me that he's going to pick me up the following Saturday, we have a major blizzard that rolls through into the area. Dumps a massive amount of snow. No, actually, no, you won't remember it because you're not on the East Coast, Todd. But it was a nor'easter. Nor'easter came through western Pennsylvania and just wiped the area out.
Yeah,
freaking 2 feet of snow.
Yeah.
The following week, which is now, so the following week, the day after Christmas, everything melts. Everything's flooded. He can't get out of his house.
Wow.
Yep. So now I get to hang out for another week until my trainer can get to me after the 1st. So after New Year's. Actually, no, right before New Year's Eve, like the weekend before New Year's Eve.
Okay. And then you do your 4 weeks with him.
4 weeks from him. So basically all of January I did with him.
Okay. Now you had a good experience. A lot of people, this training period is notorious for being a bad time. You don't get along with your trainer. You can keep in mind, you can ask your company for a different trainer if you're just not getting along, if your personalities clash, if he's just a douchebag. Can I say that on an explicit, on a clean podcast? You
just did. So
I just did.
We're going to find out.
Yeah. But just keep that in mind. As a trainee, don't let yourself be walked on. I talked to a woman one time who said her trainer did not let her take a shower for 3 weeks. The entire 3 weeks she was out. That's not cool. If you need to pull over and pee, tell them you need to pull over and pee. If you need something to eat, tell them you need to eat. Do not think this is the standard. I don't want to look weak in front of my trainer. Because if they're not offering those things to you, they're just not being cool. Yeah, you need to say it and stick up for yourself.
And this is something to remember, first of all, as a trainee, you're going into your trainer's home. These trucks are the home, the second home of the driver. So you got to be mindful of that, and you need to be respectful of that. However, you also need to remember that the ultimate thing with that truck is that truck needs to operate safely. So if you're, for whatever reason, you're tired, you're hungry, you need to pee, you need to poop, you need to shower, you don't feel comfortable, whatever, you need to be comfortable enough to be able to operate that vehicle safely. If for whatever reason you're starting to get to that point, and you will learn this, or you already know you're at that point, then you need to tell your trainer and say it exactly like this. Hey, I'm pulling into this truck stop to take a shower.
Yeah.
If they have a problem with that, then you need to tell them, and I'm 100%, and I think you'll agree with this, Todd, you need to tell them, I'm pulling in here to park to take a shower.
Yeah. Yeah. I need to shower.
I don't know what to tell you. I'm taking a shower, or I need to eat, or I need to pee. Because it's not a question of asking permission. This isn't that's not a permission. Those aren't permission things. Or, I'm really tired. I need to sleep. That's not a permission thing.
Yeah.
There's a reason why 90% of the hours of service rules are focused on sleeping.
For a reason.
Why are you going to be driving that truck while you're tired? Don't do it.
Right.
Don't.
Yeah.
Because it's not the company that's going to get it. It's you.
Right. Yeah.
So, and again, though, if you have a trainer half worth their salt, and there definitely are trainers out here not worth even a grain of that salt.
Yeah.
But if you have half a trainer worth their salt, they're going to see that, and they're going to tell you that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. And the other thing, too, is
they should
remember,
be offering it, honestly.
Yeah, they should
to make the person comfortable.
Exactly. They should be.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing to remember, too, is I'm a pretty shy person.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I may not ask.
Uh-huh.
Because either A, I don't know, B, I haven't noticed, or C, I'm so involved in my head and watching what this person's doing that I'm not thinking about those things, or I'm not noticing those things.
Right.
They can't, it's like dealing with a pet at the vet. They don't know what's wrong with the dog or cat because they can't, the vet can't ask them what's wrong. So you have to make assumptions.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes you just got to tell them, don't be barfing on the person to tell them that, hey, I need to go eat, or, hey, I'm tired, or, hey, I'm sick. But,
right.
You need to have enough foresight to say, hey, I'm really tired, I need to sleep, or I'm really hungry, or I need to get a drink,
Yep. All good advice on training. All right. So we've got that done with. You're now officially released by the trainer. He says, this guy's good to go. Have a good time. Enjoy yourself. What was your first week like as a solo driver?
Oh, do I have a week for you?
That doesn't bode well. And with that little tease, we're going to call it quits on this interview for the first part. You'll have to come back to the next episode. Like I said, that's going to be in just a couple of weeks. The next half is a little bit longer than this half. And, I just figured it probably for the best because, next week, the next episode is probably only going to have a couple of weeks of news between it. So the news segment's going to be a lot shorter and the interview will be a bit longer. And, of course, we'll have probably about the same amount of listener feedback to go. But, hey, if that intrigued you, it should, because his first week was a living nightmare. You'll just have to stay tuned to check that out. So anyway, I would like to thank Zach for stopping in and helping us understand what the first 6 months of trucking was like. I had a first 6 months of trucking too, but it's really hard to remember 24 freaking years ago, right? I just thought this would be a good interview, a good topic to cover for anybody who is new looking to get into the industry and they're like, oh boy, I don't know, do I want to do it? Don't I? And they haven't quite done enough research yet. Well, this will maybe get them started on that. So anyway, again, thank you to Zach, and we'll come back with Zach a little bit later. Well, yeah, actually just a little bit later here in the listener feedback segment. So I guess let's just get on with that, shall we? Now, where's that dang delivery guy? He's always running late. That's really why the podcast is always running late. You know that, right?
Hey, yo, bud, where do you want this load of feedback?
Here we are in episode 156, and I have to say that today marks a sad end of an era. And what I mean by that is we're going to read Stevie's last 3 comments. She's had a lot of them on here, and it's been fun so far. So let's get on with her comments. In the first one, she is commenting on Trucker Dump 84, which was a TV casting call for a new show about truckers. Not really any sense in going back to listen to that one since it's long past, but, no sense even putting that link in the show notes. So don't look for it there. Not that you look for anything in the show notes anyway. But Stevie writes, Hey, Todd, I agree with everyone else. You so needed to throw your hat into the ring, as it were. I also agree with Christy about being easy on the eyes. Whew, look at that. I'm a sexy beast. What can I say? And she says, and your blog and podcast is one of my favorites. One of my other favorite TV shows that lasted 5 years on the air, it had to do with truckers and their trucks. The CMT had Trick My Truck. I used to love the guys of the Chrome Shop Mafia. Apparently, they're still in business down there in Joplin, just no longer on TV. Safe travels to you, my friend, as always. Yes, Stevie, they are in business. My company actually picks up freight from them all the time. It's big and awkward, as most things are when you're picking up, bumpers and truck parts, big old truck parts. They're weird to handle, and thank God for forklifts. That's all I have to say about that. But yeah, I never did watch that show. I heard it was pretty cool, but I've never been kind of into the whole pimping out your truck thing. So, anyway, I'm glad you really enjoyed it, and I'm glad you enjoyed this episode. Next up, Stevie writes, Hey, Todd, I like the feedback show. That's episode 96. I'll put a link in the show notes to that. She says, yes, it was a little long-winded, but that's okay. Aren't they all a little long-winded, Stevie? She says, I also learned some new stuff, so that's cool. Maybe do a feedback show every so often. You're still my fave blog podcast out there. Keep it up. Safe travels, my friend. Well, Stevie, I have done a couple more feedback shows since then. I will put a link to every single one of them in the show notes. And alas, we finally reached the final comment from Stevie. Can we have a moment of silence? Thank you very much. She comments on Trucker Dump 100. What makes the evil overlord evil? She says, hey, Todd, congrats on show 100. I've also gone back and have listened to all the other episodes from the beginning. Cool. I have also commented on quite a few episodes as well. You don't say. No, seriously. I'm messing with you, Stevie. I loved it. Keep them coming. There's more episodes to go there. She says, anyway, keep it up. I've enjoyed the ride so far. Safe travels to you, my friend. Well, thank you, Stevie, for all the fun reading these emails. I love getting emails from listeners. It means that somebody is out there listening and actually cares enough to write in. So keep that in mind. If you hear something and you have a comment on it, I'd love to hear from you. truckerdump@gmail.com. For this next one, well, you're really going to enjoy it if you're one of those listeners who really likes to hear me butcher names. Actually, in the email, he calls himself M, but the email says, here we go, Batari Nakunzi. Not sure how bad I butchered that, but hey, M, write in and tell me how far was I off? Anyway, he heard me talking about the Cincinnati Bridge and how it was shut down due to the fire, and he writes, hello, M here. Thought I would send in some feedback as I unload my fuel. I'm a tanker fuel hauler. Well, I hope you are if you're unloading your fuel. He says, I am currently in Dayton, Ohio. Last episode, you mentioned Cincinnati and the bridge on I-75 between Kentucky and Ohio. Actually, I was driving from Atlanta in my personal car when I saw the truck, which I believe was a tanker, on fire. I have some videos of it. Not the best, but I was there. We had to take detours to enter into Ohio. Anyways, I'm a big fan of your podcast. So are you living in Cincinnati? No, I'm not. He says, cool to know podcasters are near me. Nope. No podcasters near you. Well, there probably are, but not me. He says, so yeah, I have done many trucking jobs from reefer to intermodal to doubles with FedEx to car hauling and now tanker. I am local now because I just want to spend more time with the kids since that time lost can never be bought back. Great point. Money is great, but cannot buy time. All right. Talk to you later. Peace. Well, thanks, M. I appreciate it. That's really cool that I was talking about that fire, which is unfortunate, but it's cool. There was somebody actually there witnessing it. And for the record, we talked about this quite a while ago. I'm sure most of you know that the bridge is now open, but if you have hazmat, they do not allow it across that bridge anymore. You have to take a detour, either the long way around on either side or up that 480, I believe, is an option too. I think it's 480. Is that right? 475? No, 475 is a loop around. Anyway, I don't remember. It's one of those highways. You'll see it on the map. So anyway, thank you, M, for writing in. I appreciate you taking the time to do so. Sticking with the theme of fire. Fire, yeah, fire. Sorry, little Beavis and Butthead there. We're going to talk to Greg T. Remember, right? Greg just retired, was kind of forced out by a medical issue, but he's still staying active here, sending me some stuff. So that's cool. He sent me a photo of, well, a burned, really badly burned reefer unit. I'll put a link in the show notes to it, so you can see it, or, it'll be there in the chapter art too. So anyway, apparently what happened is some driver left the coals from his barbecue grill on the ground in a truck stop parking lot while they were still hot. and some driver pulled in right back over it. And my guess is he probably parked his tires on top of it. It set the whole thing afire, and they had to actually wake up the driver before it got up to the tractor. He didn't even know it was on fire. So he just dumped the trailer and pulled out from underneath it. So moral of the story, don't dump your coals out in the parking lot. I mean, for Pete's sake. Apparently they said that they knew the guy had done this and moved his vehicle, moved the truck and trailer to a different spot. Now, why would you do that? Maybe because that fire was hot and he didn't want his trailer catching on fire, but it's okay for the next guy, I guess. Selfish. Wow. Anyway, thanks for the photo there, Greg. Appreciate it. Even if it is a bit depressing to see how remarkably selfish some people are. Hey, do you remember how in the last episode, Smackerman shamed me for forgetting to about all his emails he had sent in, audio comments? Well, apparently, hopefully you haven't had enough of his voice in this episode already, because we got one more from him, more to come in future episodes. But what do you have to say this time around, Zach?
Hey, Todd, it's Smackerman. I wanted to give you an audio comment about a few things that I've thought about. So we'll go with just some quick suggestions for new drivers or even old, current drivers, people who've been on the road for a while.
Nice save there, Smackerman, because I'm pretty sure you almost just called a bunch of us old. Carry on.
You want to make sure you got a big hammer. Now, what do I mean by big hammer? I mean, make sure you have a mini sledgehammer. The weight of the hammer is really going to help when you need to knock pins on a tandem into place. Quick story on that. My tandem pins were so stuck that the release bar wouldn't even release. So I couldn't move the release bar to release the tandems to be able to slide the tandems. So I had to wail on the pins for a good 5 solid minutes with the claw hammer that my company provided in order to get the pins to move. So do yourself a favor, get yourself a mini sledgehammer. It's really going to help.
I totally concur with your big hammer theory here, Smackerman. Not only is it good for things like smashing in these pins, but it's also great for hitting brake drums when they're, when the pads are frozen to the drum. That extra weight really does help. Now, to anyone new to the trucking industry, I would like to point out, Smackerman probably knows this by now, but maybe he doesn't, but these things are notorious for getting stuck. These tandem, these slide handles on the tandems on the trailer, notorious. People take turns too sharp and those pins get bent in there and stuck in there, and there's just nothing really you can do about it except for, in your case, get in there and smash them with a hammer. Or they do make special tools, kind of like a pry bar. It's a unique thing to look at. You kind of put the handle of the pry bar on the handle of the tandem there, the tandem handle, and then you pry against the edge of the trailer. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But ultimately, just know that if you're new, these things cause problems for everyone. Now, I'm assuming Smackerman did not have anybody else around, but usually the best way to get these things unlocked is just to have somebody standing back there pulling on it as you are rocking the trailer back and forth. But that is a 2-person operation. So just know it happens to the best of us. There's no dignity lost in walking up to a fellow trucker and asking for some help on this stuff, because we've all been there. All right. So what do you got next for us there, Smackerman?
A couple more things, or a few more things, actually. Get some insulated mugs. At least one really good insulated mug. That obviously, I don't know about everyone else, but I like my drinks to stay cold. I like cold drinks. And the insulated mugs, especially, I highly recommend the Yeti mugs. They really, really help to keep your drinks cold for a long time. And it makes your life a lot easier. You can even get a couple of them. I'm thinking about getting a second one, but I've been kind of going back and forth. I kind of just like my little system I have of, I've got the one nice insulated mug, and then I use the, whatever truck stop I'm at, other cup for another drink.
Once again, Smackerman, I concur. You know, this would be a lot more fun if you just let me disagree with you on everything, but hey, we're on the same side on this. Now, I do have a Yeti mug, but I have two. I'll explain that in a minute, but I'm not convinced that they are that much better than your, cheaper ones that you can get at Walmart or whatever. Those Ozark Trails are much, much cheaper. Something that from Yeti might be $40 and something from Ozark Trail might be $10 or $12. And, pretty much the same technology, but I still buy Yeti. And let me tell you why. The lids on the cheaper models tend to be very hard to clean. I don't usually like the lids on the way they slide, the openings and stuff like that. But the Yetis, I do like them. They have a simple magnetic slide that just slides forward and backs, kind of clicks into place. And, it pops off really easy for cleaning. And that is why I choose to spend the extra money on the Yeti. Besides, the evil overlord is a fan of Yeti. And so when I say I need an insulated mug, that is what she buys. So even if I like the other one better, I'd probably be stuck with this one anyway. But on to the 1 or 2 method. I have 2 of them also. I have one that holds about 16 ounces that I use for coffee only. And then I have a bigger one that holds maybe 20, 24 ounces for, that I use for water, soda every now and then, tea, stuff like that. But I find that the coffee, it makes your mug reek so bad no matter what you do to it. It gets in that little rubber lining and everything, and there's just nothing you can do. So unless you like coffee flavored water, I would suggest going ahead and getting 2 of them. That way I can keep those 2 separate and keep the yumminess coming. All right, carry on.
The other thing is make sure you have, and I don't know why this even needs to be said for most guys, I mean gals too, but make sure you have at least 1 pair of shoes and at least 1 pair of boots. Why? Because even when it's not raining, those parking lot puddles suck. And oftentimes they're a lot deeper than they look.
Yes,
especially
they are.
when you have the ruts in the parking lot and they are a lot deeper than one would think or what they look like. So make sure you have a good pair of boots and a good pair of shoes just so your feet are comfortable, you can move around, and they're not sweating like a madman while you're driving down the road.
Dang it, Smackerman, knock it off. I totally agree again. I think it is a good thing for a trucker to have boots with them. I don't always follow that practice, but it is kind of important to me to have 2 pairs of shoes at least because, I hate wet socks and shoes. And like you said, you step in one of those giant craters, your foot's covered with water, and now you've got to sit in those wet shoes all day long, and it bugs the living crap out of me. So 2 pair of shoes, I approve. Next.
And then lastly, get yourself some just basic leather gloves and a basic LED flashlight. So the gloves, obviously, things for pre-trips, for fueling, I would recommend at least 2 pairs of gloves. So 1 pair of gloves for, your pre-trip, your post-trip, your, unlocking tandems, doing stuff around the truck, and then 1 pair of gloves specifically for fueling, because those fueling gloves are going to get nasty really, really quick. Trust me, they will get really nasty. And then the flashlight, go with the LEDs. They're brighter. They have a longer reach. The batteries are going to last longer. And I mean, for, $15, $20, you can get a nice size, bright flashlight that will do the job great for when you're doing your pre-trips, post-trips, checking the trailer, all those things. So those are just some quick things. I've got some other stories I'm going to do, but I'm trying to keep this under or around 3 minutes, which it's almost 4 now. So I will sign off and I will make another audio comment. Bye.
Bye, Smackerman. Again, since I already said bye to you once in this episode. I get it for the gloves. I don't do that. I have 1 pair of gloves for the summer that are a lightweight pair of leather ones. And yes, they do get filthy and nasty, but I'm getting, stuff filthy and nasty on my pre-trip anyway. In the winter, I just have a heavier pair of leather gloves that I use, and they get just as nasty. I just swap them out every now and then. No big deal. As for the flashlight, I totally agree on LED. If you can get one that's rechargeable in the truck, that would be great, like through a USB or something like that. I have a little one that I stole from the evil overlord, and she's still pissed at me about it. But it's just a little tiny light that fits in the palm of my hand. It's LED, and I shined that thing all the way across the interstate the other day just for giggles to see if I could see the exit sign on the other side of the ramp. And sure enough, I could see it. Couldn't believe it. And just so powerful, but it takes 3 AAA batteries, and they don't last that long. That's the only thing I don't like about this little flashlight. But, one other thing, and this sounds so, I don't know, so lame, but I like a flashlight that only has 2 modes, on and off. Oh, well, if you want to adjust the beam or something like that, that's fine too. But with the clicker, the button, just on or off. She got me one a couple years ago for Christmas. She thought I might like it. And it was like, you had to click on through like 3 or 4 modes. It had like a red light. It had a flashing strobe light. It had a bright light. It had a dim light. And you had to click through it like 4 times just to get the thing to the mode you wanted. Didn't like it. Kept hers. And that's why she's still pissed at me. She didn't get it back. Anyway, I need to find another good flashlight, one that is rechargeable. But all good advice, especially to new truckers. I'm sure the older truckers like me, already know most of this stuff, but great advice for newbies. So thank you, Smackerman. We'll be getting to more of your audio comments in the next episode. And we'll hear your voice for another long period of time in the next episode, too, in the rest of your interview. All right, to wrap this up, we're going to hear from a couple of women truck drivers. Let's see. First, we have Angela Peters. She writes, "Good morning. My friend Gwen recommended that I reach out to you and ask about joining Slack. She's been helpful to me as I am trying to get my CDL. I'm currently in school. I started listening to Trucker Dump, and I've joined a couple groups online, but I would like to join this group for some support and advice. Thank you much, Angela." Well, yay, Angela. Not only did you get to join the Trucker Dump Slack group, but you also share a name with my little sister. So, yay, Angela. And I wanted to point this out, that the Trucker Dump Slack group is a safe place for women. We do not hit on you. We do not talk about body parts. We don't, comment on your appearance, things like that. I mean, well, some a little bit, but, all in fun. No crudeness. We keep things nice and clean for everyone. We just want to respect everyone. And to emphasize this and to show you that this is accurate, I would like to read one of the posts that Gwen, who goes by Furiosa in the Trucker Dump Slack group, she wrote this to Angela when she came into the group. She writes, and again, this is Gwen writing this, Furiosa. She writes, "I seriously give these guys a lot of crap, but in a moment of sincerity, I will admit that this ragtag team of truckers has been the most invaluable resource I have come across in my very short 3 years of trucking. You can seriously ask any question, and these nerds always have the right intention and will help you out. Especially with you being so new, I wanted to offer you a space full of respectable and knowledgeable people. They just unfortunately happen to be men." This is Furiosa, by the way. That's Furiosa all wrapped up for you. She gives us all a hard time, and we love her for it. So anyway, if you are a woman who is looking for a respectable place to go, especially if you're new, but if you are one of us old truckers, as Smackerman puts it, come on into the Trucker Dump Slack group and join the other 2 women who are in there already. So thank you, Angela. Thank you, Furiosa. Appreciate you being a part of the group. And lastly, we are going to need your help with Brandy. All right, here we go. She writes, "Hello. I'm not sure if this email is still active, but I thought I'd give it a try. So I read your Trucking Life book. First of all, fantastic, great information." Well, thank you, Brandy. I appreciate that. She writes, "I did remember you said that size is not something to worry about," which is what I said in the book. She wrote, I wanted advice if you had any. You see, I'm a 4'9", 26-year-old woman living in the great communist state that is Washington, which I'm told is one of the hardest and strictest states to get your CDL in. I was just on the phone with the school who told me that they've had a girl who was 4'10" that couldn't quite reach the pedals and failed the state test. I am determined to get my CDL one way or another, unless I can hear from an experienced truck driver that it's just not doable for me. So, if you had any advice for me, what my options might be, I'd really appreciate that. Would I need to go to school and test outside of my state? Is that something I could even do? Are there particular states that might be more lenient? Or am I just a bit more limited in my options that I might need to learn through a company? I appreciate your time. And again, thank you for your wonderful book. I really enjoyed it. Thanks, Brandy. Well, I would like your help in this. I'm not a short woman, so I've never been through this. I'm hoping we have some shorter women out there that can help Brandy through this. And if you want to reach out to me at truckerdump@gmail.com, I would be happy to hook you and Brandy up so you can, chat back and forth privately. What I wrote to Brandy, I'm just going to read you what I wrote to Brandy, and you can add or subtract. I would like to hear your thoughts. Write into me also at truckerdump@gmail.com and share what you think about this. And what I wrote to her, I'm glad you found the book useful, blah, 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 blah. I don't have any personal experience with states' requirements, but I do know that you have to hold the CDL in the state you reside. And you can only hold one of those, by the way. So I don't think you could continue to live in Washington and go elsewhere for your CDL. As you've experienced, I think the testing is probably the hardest thing you're going to encounter, because I know I've heard of trucking companies who accommodated shorter drivers, both male and female, by literally unbolting the driver's seat, scooting it up a bit, and bolting it back in. Sadly, I don't remember which companies these are. So out there, if you know who these companies are that will accommodate for shorter drivers, please write in and let us know. I also advise Brandy to join trucking Facebook groups and ask for advice in there. And I also said she might want to reach out to the Women in Trucking organization. That's womenintrucking.org. We had Ella and Voya on here talking about the mission of Women in Trucking, and their entire mission is just to get more women involved in the industry. So I'd be willing to bet that since it's a bunch of women over there, that they probably have some ladies of shorter stature, and they might be able to give her some good advice. But again, there are plenty of you out there who may have been through this exact situation. I was even wondering if maybe you could go on I would hate to pull this card, but I wondered if you could go on some kind of a discriminatory thing saying, hey, you're not giving me the opportunity to even pass a CDL test because I don't have anything I can drive that fits. I don't know if that's an argument. I would not want to go there unless that's your last resort. But hey, where there's a will, there's a way. So again, if any of you have thoughts on this, please email me, truckerdump@gmail.com, and I would love to speak with you about this, and I would love to pass this information along to Brandy and get you guys together. So with that, that's going to do it for episode 156. I guess we'll see you in episode 157. I'd like to remind everybody that this episode of Trucker Dump is sponsored by Volvo's D13 Turbo Compound Engine and Pilot Flying J's Driver Appreciation Month. Be sure to take advantage of all the deals in the app, and make sure you jump on that Thank a Trucker challenge. And again, there'll be links in the show notes to both awesome sponsors. So with that, turn it up to 11. So what'd you think of that interview? Did anything crazy happen to you in your first 6 months of driving? Tell me all about it by shooting me an email to truckerdump@gmail.com. You can also use that address to join the Trucker Dump Slack group, or leave suggestions, critiques, comments, or just to troll me. What the heck? And don't forget about the Trucker Dump Facebook group. If you haven't subscribed to or followed the podcast yet, please choose a podcast player of your choice and get on that. Tell all your friends, rent a Skywriter, or rent a billboard. Whatever floats your boat. I'm not picky, just persistent. Well, as always, I appreciate you giving up your time to listen in. So until next time, drive safe and stay out of my way. Then the turbo compound unit lassos up any... lassos. Right now it's at 120 degrees in the horizontal. So if you can see 120 degrees field of vision from side to side, that is fine right now. No, that's not what they're saying at all. You get that backwards, you moron.
I just want to remain, keep a little bit of anonymity.
Dude,
I'm just not going to name my company.
You just hit the blooper reel, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. At least I wasn't first. It won't be the last.
Oh, no, undoubtedly. But, yeah, Skype's kind of a flaming turd, honestly. It is.
Wow, I mean, it's a Microsoft product, so is that really a big surprise?
No. Maybe surprise questions on here, so.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sneaky.
All right, sneaky.
How long have you been a trucker now? And what type of trucker trailer? Let me rephrase that. Today we've got Zach. Today I'm going to interview Zach Smaker. Today I'm interviewing Zach Macher. I knew I couldn't say his name.